All right, well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our first community workshop. It's not every day that we get to spend some time talking about the future of one of our California state parks, and so very appreciative of your time this evening. It's very important that we receive public input during these projects, and so today should be very engaging. We have some questions, some information to share with you, and some timelines on the project as well. So to get us started, I'm going to introduce a few people on our team today. My name is Danielle Gerhardt. I'm the district superintendent for what we call the Central Valley District. It consists of 15 parks throughout the Central Valley and the Sierra Nevada foothills. With our local state parks team, we also have headquarters staff. And joining us today, Jason Finley and David Block are on with us. And then from the district team, we have our sector superintendent, Duke Heberlein, our natural resource manager, Heather Reith, our senior park and rec specialist, Paige Heller, environmental scientist, Colette Bradley, and our museum curator and cultural resource specialist, Lee Eel. And as Luis mentioned, we have Ascent, who is our consulting team and will be supporting the project with us today. Adam, Lily, Lindsay, and Luis, I believe, are all on with us today, so you may hear from them from time to time today. So a very large team, and we're grateful for all the different expertise that we could bring to the table for this important project. So to get us started today, went through the basic introductions. We'll also have the plan overview and purpose. So what are we doing and why are we inviting you to this public input meeting today? We'll have some discussion time and some interesting questions to get us all thinking. And then we will have time at the end for some question and answer time. So if you have things throughout the meeting, please write them down or get them ready because we are looking for your input tonight. And finally, we'll go over our next steps, closing remarks, and we will go over a timeline for the project as well. So again, thank you for joining us today, and we really look forward to hearing from you here in the next hour or so.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Well, so we do want this to be interactive, and we've designed it to do so. And one way to do that is through Slido. We will have some interactive questions throughout the whole entire slide, the whole entire presentation. And the best way to connect to Slido there are two ways. You can either go and scan this QR code and enter the number here, 3973709. Or if you are on a computer, you can type in slido.com and it'll prompt you to enter a number where you will enter this number provided. If you are uncomfortable using Slido, feel free to use the chat or you can unmute and participate when appropriate. But we're going to test this out on this first upcoming question. So the QR code is there, or you can also go to slido.com. Our first question is, how often do you visit Great Valley Grasslands State Park? I'm seeing some variety in the group. And if anyone's having issues, definitely now's the time to let us know, or you type it into the chat and we'll try to support you. Awesome. So it looks like most of us once a year, but there are a variety of others. Now on to our next question. How long does it take you to get to Great Valley Grasslands State Park from your home? Awesome. Thanks everyone for participating. Looks like quite a few of us are more than 2 hours, but there are also some within, under the 2 hour mark. So a little bit of diversity is there as well. Now, one last question before we get into the introduction of our presentation. And this is where we really want to hear from you, in one or two words. What's your favorite outdoor recreation activity? Hiking being a big one, that makes sense. Seeing some other ones, paddling, birding, not seeing any more activities. So I appreciate the input, a good little variety here. And awesome, thank you. So now we are going to get into the park overview and just share some details about Great Valley Grasslands, just to help lay some foundation before we transition into the discussion. So I'll hand it over to Duke.
Hi, Duke Airblame, Forward Sector Superintendent with State Parks. So talk a little bit about the history of Great Valley Grasslands. You go to the next slide. So it's kind of the four corners of Merced, almost in between Turlock, Merced, Los Banos, and Newman. Sorry, my computer's blinked off there. But yeah, we're really centralized in the state. I think all of you are familiar with where it's at. If you could move to the next slide. So the park is 2,826 acres. It does have the San Joaquin River running through it. Some of the natural features are the California grasslands, the vernal pools, the riparian channels and sloughs, and the riparian woodlands. The park is unfortunately largely unknown, even to local communities, and it has low visitation as a result. Recreation facilities we have there are the boat launch, the parking lot, and those are both on the Highway 140 side of the park. There's about 5.3 miles of trails and unpaved roads and the kind of the vault toilet there. And all those facilities are on the Highway 140 side. The Highway 165 side of the park, we don't have anything except for the trail we call South Levee Road. The popular recreation activities in the park are fishing, boating, hiking, biking, and bird watching. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So some of the history of the park: 1953, California State Parks acquired 114 acres and classified it as Fremont Ford State Park. In 63, Fremont Ford is reclassified, renamed to Fremont Ford State Recreation Area. In 76, State Parks creates an interpretive prospectus for Fremont Ford SRA. And then between 80 and 81, California State Parks acquired additional 2,712 acres and named the unclassified unit the San Luis Island Project. Then in 92, Fremont Ford and San Luis Island Park units were combined and reclassified, renamed to Great Valley Grasslands State Park. And now here in 2012, we are beginning the process for the general plan. So as you can see on the map here, the highway or the park does connect to the two highways of 165 and 140. Like I said, the main facilities we currently have being on the 140 side. So that's one thing really wanted everyone's input on, is looking to see what people are interested in. We have a lot of area on the 165 side that has limited to no access for anyone. And this is a great opportunity to give your input of what you would like to see out there. Go ahead and move on to the next one. I think we're on to Jason.
Hi, everybody. Jason Finley. I'm a parks planner with Headquarters Strategic Planning. And I'll be talking about the plan overview and purpose. Next slide, please. So what is a state park general plan? It's a policy level long-range planning document that's required by the Public Resources Code for every state park unit. It's the primary managing document for the park, which sets goals and guidelines for current and future park facilities. It can have recommendations for natural and/or cultural resource management, as well as recommendations for educational programs and potential partnerships and recreational opportunities. The plan is also an opportunity to hear from stakeholders, neighboring landowners, interest groups, and the general public. And it's an opportunity to align the plan to fit the needs of the community, as well as coordinate for consistency with local neighboring agencies. As far as the planning hierarchy, everything starts with the California State Parks mission, which is to inspire and educate the public, preserve biodiversity, protect cultural resources, and create opportunities for high quality outdoor recreation. From there, you'll get into statewide plans, which in this case is actually a regional plan. It's the Central Valley Vision, which was created in 2009. Which gave high-level policy and planning recommendations for parks and future parks in the Central Valley. And now we're working on the general plan. And from the general plan, we could get into specific management plans, such as resource management plans, recreational trails management plans, or even facility management plans farther down the line. Or can get into specific project plans, which are detailed implementation plans. Some examples of these are detailed plans for trails or campgrounds, or even prescribed burn plans for a specific area of the unit. Next slide, please. So the importance of Great Valley Grasslands State Park and planning for it. The park is important because compared to other areas of the state, the Central Valley lacks open public lands, especially near underserved communities. There is a big push to increase access to parks and open spaces, and this general plan is a great opportunity to meet that need. Central Valley is one of the fastest growing regions in the state, so providing more opportunities to recreate and get outdoors, we know has health benefits for communities. So whether that be nature walks, bird watching, fishing, which we saw in the Slido, and other opportunities which may come up, get highlighted throughout the planning process. With the Great Valley Grasslands, there's opportunity for interpretation and education. Not only native grasslands and the vernal pools that are there and are important for understanding the environmental history of the valley floor, but also the people who occupy the area throughout history. And another reason this plan is important for Great Valley Grasslands is because up until now, there hasn't been much planning at the unit. There's been some floodplain restoration efforts, but going through this process, we'll identify projects to protect and enhance resources and expand recreational opportunities. Next slide, please. So what are the elements of a general plan? Part of it is the existing conditions overview, which lays the groundwork. It summarizes the status of resources, land uses, facilities, recreational trends, interpretation, and overall park operations that exist today. And from here, we can evaluate proposed changes and potential impacts of those changes. We look at things like significant resource values, its context in the region, and other planning influences such as the Central Valley Plan, the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan, and other policy level influences at the regional and statewide level. Issues and analysis. We list issues for the entire park or specific areas, and provide analysis that looks into the origins of those issues and whether the general plan can address them, or if we'll address them in subsequent management plans. Some of these issues may be known through research of the park, discussions with park staff, or from information we gather at workshops like these, and meetings with our stakeholders and partners. And then the plan alternatives, which at this stage, the planning team would develop proposed land uses and management zones, develop a list of planning choices, recommendations, goals, and guidelines that align with the original purpose of the park. And through more discussions with the public and our stakeholders and partners, we'll arrive at a preferred alternative that's guided by all of the input and planning that's led up to this plan. Unit vision and guidelines. This plan will have a long-term vision for the park and how it will be operated and made available to the public. The vision will be backed up with agreed upon goals and guidelines that will push future planning and management efforts towards realizing that vision. And environmental analysis, as required by law. General plan is a project under the California Environmental Quality Act, and we're required to analyze the environmental impacts our planning decisions have on the environment and work to mitigate those impacts. Next slide, please. So we are currently in that red circle, currently here at the issues and opportunities phase of the general plan development, with public meeting number 1. Over the summer, we had stakeholder meeting number 1, and we currently have a public survey, which is still live, and we welcome your input on that survey as well, which you can find on our website, and be able to provide a link in the chat as well. And I believe I hand it back to Luis.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, so before we go into the discussion portion, just want to open it up for any questions. There will be an opportunity for questions and discussion throughout this later part of the meeting, but want to make sure that if anyone had any initial questions on anything that was presented. I'm not hearing any, but if any come up, definitely make note of them, and there will be plenty of opportunities to discuss them. We are transitioning into our discussion portion, so this is where we really want to hear from you, and get an idea of what you value, and what local needs might be. So I'll provide a quick little introduction on what this next section is. We really want to collaborate and, like I said, hear from you. This section is designed to spark discussion on key topics related to the general plan and its development. The topics that we will explore are resource management, interpretation and education, recreation facilities, and unit purpose and vision. And each will have a brief introduction with some supporting questions and then room for discussion. And how to participate. You saw some Slido questions earlier. There will be more of those. Feel free to use the raise hand function if you want to add to something that you read or that you see on the screen. Share additional thoughts and questions in the chat or out loud. Either work. And really want everyone to know that every idea counts, and this is why we're here, is because we want to hear from you. So as mentioned, our first topic is resource management. And I will kick it back off to the State Parks team for this slide.
I'll go ahead and start. My name is Colette Bradley. I'm one of the environmental scientists in the Central Valley District. And so we're going to start with climate change on this. So some of the expected effects of climate change include rising temperatures, reduction in surface water storage, more precipitation and heavier storms, as well as a longer dry season. Our dry season at times into November as well. And so this means a few different things for the state park, beginning with more heat wave events, rising annual average temperatures, temporary drought-like conditions caused by the extreme heat, increased length of dry spells, and then prolonged flooding in the park due to changes in precipitation patterns. And this, while it might interrupt recreation, it's also a positive for the park. We have a floodplain restoration project going on in the park at this point. We are cutting through some old levees to let water back onto the land and let the river meander how it naturally would. And so this more water on the land equals more groundwater recharge, and that's a net benefit for local municipalities. Climate change also brings increased vulnerability to wildfire events. We have our prescribed burn team within the district. They're located up in the Sierra Nevadas, up at Calaveras Big Trees, but they do work throughout the district. We plan to do prescribed burns at the park, as well as work with Native American partners to do some cultural burning. This will in turn restore native grasslands and reduce our vulnerability to these wildfires. And now Heather, our natural resources program manager, will talk a little bit more about our program and things we're doing in the park.
Hi, thank you, Colette. Sorry.
Oh, all good. It's all connected. Well, so before we go into the next part, into discussing natural resources, we did want to present one question, just given about climate change. What climate change impacts are you most concerned about? Yeah, seeing a variety, all very fair concerns. If they're impacting us, they are going to impact the park as well. And again, definitely feel free to use the chat if you are unable to use Slido. Yes, we saw a lot of drought, wind, and flooding. So I think that's all very valid. Now, see one more participant. Want to make sure to capture that. Yeah, in the heat. Now, moving us on to natural resources.
All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm Heather Reith, and I'm the Natural Resources Program Manager. And so at Great Valley Grasslands, we have 12 documented special status species. Those include, but they're not limited to, we have the giant garter snake, spadefoot toad, California tiger salamander, Swainton's hawks. We also have Our vernal pools, which are along the Pacific Flyway, so we get a lot of waterfowl coming into the park during the winter, and of course, other seasons. And so in our vernal pools, though, we have also some Delta button celery and Ferris and Coulter's goldfields, which are rare plant species associated with the vernal pools. And we also have 11 special status species that have the potential to occur. So back to those vernal pools, we have the potential to have vernal pool fairy shrimp there and tadpole fairy shrimp. So we can have some more investigations there and see what species we have. And then in our ongoing resources management, we have a floodplain restoration project that we're in partnership with American Rivers. And that is, we plan to restore about 220 acres of floodplain habitat, where the project aims to remove segments of existing levees that protect portions of Great Valley grasslands from flooding. Removal of the levee segments would reconnect the grasslands to natural fluctuations of the San Joaquin River and establish floodplain ecological functions in the park through connection to San Joaquin River flows. And then next we have what we call the Cannabis Remediation and Floodplain Restoration Project. And that project unfortunately came about because we had a lot of illegal grows within the park and onto the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service land. And these were located on our north bank area, and the project will result in remediation of multiple legal cannabis grow sites and floodplain restoration within 48 acres of the riparian area of the north bank area of the park, so above the north of the river. And then finally, American Rivers, they received what I displaying as the North Park Planning and Restoration Project, and this is through the Wildlife Conservation Board, and this project will complete 65% designs for restoration and public access improvements, SECO compliance, and permitting required to make shovel-ready a multifaceted project that involves or improves the ecological resilience of the site and the well-being of disadvantaged communities adjacent to Great Valley Grasslands State Park. And we can do the next slide, please. Oops, that's me too. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, so our cultural resources. We have, so it's the Great Valley Grasslands is the traditional homeland of the Northern Valley Yokuts/Ohlone tribe. And we are partnered with the Northern Valley Yokuts through our natural resources work and through our cultural resource manager. They're helping to monitor our work for the floodplain restoration. We're also partnered with the Amamutsin. We partnered with them in our first prescribed burn at the park, and we hope to have many more opportunities to partner with them and with the Northern Valley Yokuts. And then we have 12 recorded cultural sites to date, and we have flood control levees built during the flood control project, and that dates back to about 1959 when they did the Lower San Joaquin River Flood Control Project. And then finally, we have portions of an earthen levee that are eligible for listings on the National Register of Historical Places. Next slide.
Oops. And we have another Slido question. So which two of the following resource management opportunities do you consider most important? And for those who are unable to use Slido, I'll scroll down slowly. So I know it's changing a little bit. Give it a few seconds. All right, and seeing some comments in the chat too regarding restoration, number 1. All right, well, appreciate the input on this. We're going to move on to our next question. So we want to, let's get more specific on this question. What resource improvement opportunities would you like to see at Great Valley Grasslands? Some examples include cultural burning, vernal pool restoration, grassland restoration, and this is open-ended. Feel free to get as specific as you'd like. And we may have questions for you as people submit answers. Or if you have a question for us or would like us to elaborate, feel free to raise your hand. Seeing lots of comments related to restoration, various different types, invasive species management. Seeing a couple more comments in the works. Oops, my bad. Oops. All right, well, it looks like everyone is done here. So we are going to move on to our next. On to interpretation and education.
Hi, yeah, good evening. My name is Amber Sprock, and I am the Public Information Officer for Central Valley District. And interpretation and education varies across the state from park to park. It can be virtual programs or in-person programs for the public, for school groups, for children, for adults, and it can vary from bird watching to campfire programs and such. Currently, at the park, there is limited educational and interpretive opportunities for the public. But the general plan will include guidelines for the interpretation and education for the park. So community feedback is important and will influence the interpretation and educational opportunities as we go forward.
Oops, thank you, Amber. All right, on to our next Slido question. What types of events or activities would you like to see at the park? And you are welcome to select up to 3. And for those who are, I'll scroll slowly for those who don't have access to Slido. So we have hands-on conservation workshops, seasonal wildlife watching events, interactive exhibits on local flora and fauna, guided nature walks, cultural demonstrations by local Native American tribes, environmental education, and it's it's all changing on me. Storytelling about the park's cultural heritage, regular pop-up events at the park, or other. All right, not seeing any more activity. So it looks like guided nature walks got the most, a little bit more activity. And cultural demonstrations by local Native American tribes, regular pop-up events were the top 3. So I definitely appreciate that feedback. Now for our next question, we want to identify some specific topics that either you or your family would be most interested in learning about at Great Valley Grasslands. I think the previous question was kind of high-level activities, but what specifically would you like to learn about or see be taught at Great Valley Grasslands? All right, we have a nice little variety here and seeing some typing as people continue thinking, and you are welcome to enter more than one here. In wildlife, stewardship, ecosystem complexities, history of the land, a lot of conservation and stewardship, ecological knowledge, traditional Native and American practices, the kind of a variety. Still seeing some typing. Yeah, definitely want to make sure we capture kind of what you would like to see. Awesome. Well, thank you all for that feedback. I think this is a really nice list of things that we'd like to potentially see. So I am going to kick us off into the next topic, which is recreation and park facilities. Adam, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Adam Lewandowski with Ascent, and I'd like to talk about some of the facilities that could be considered to support recreation at the park. And as Duke described earlier on, there are really just a couple of facilities at the park right now. Those include that parking area, the vault toilet, the boat ramp, and some informal trails and dirt roads. But this general plan really provides an opportunity to think about what type of recreational opportunities the park can provide, and then what facilities might be needed to support that recreation. So next slide, please. So in just a moment, we'll have another Slido question to ask you to think about the types of recreation facilities you'd like to see. So start thinking about how you like to recreate and what type of facilities might be needed for that recreation. But this slide lists some of the types of facilities that might be appropriate for Great Valley Grasslands State Park. We're not necessarily limited to the facilities on this slide. So if you do have other ideas, we'd like to hear them. But some potential facilities could include, native surface, kind of dirt hiking or biking trails. They could include accessible trails, so things like boardwalks to get out into the meadows or along the river. They could include small picnic areas, as simple as just picnic tables, maybe some shade structures, or larger group picnic areas, potentially something like a pavilion where larger groups could get together. We could consider campgrounds or even group campsites, again, larger campsites for a bigger group or an event. We could look at opportunities for a visitor information center, which could be as simple as a kiosk or something that's more elaborate to provide some of those interpretation education materials that we just talked about. We could also look at whether there needs to be an expansion or changes to the boat launch, or even the addition of a non-motorized boat launch for canoes and kayaks. And we could look at opportunities for a fishing platform as a way to make it a little bit more accessible for people to get out and access the river. So next slide, please. And I believe we have our first question for you.
Yep, we have select the top 3 recreation facilities you would like to see at Great Valley Grasslands. We have hiking and biking trails, accessible trails, picnic areas, campgrounds, visitor information centers, expanded boat launch, non-motorized boat launch, fishing platform, or educational materials. All right, looks like we have hiking and biking trails at the top, non-motorized boat launch, and visitor information centers. They're our top 3 at the moment. I will transition us to our next Slido question. Appreciate all the input here. Oh, still looks like we got a little bit more input, so if you need a little bit more time, feel free. All right, now on to our next. So we kind of provided you with the list, but we want to make sure we didn't miss anything. So outside of what was mentioned, what additional recreation facilities or improvements should be included in the general plan?
And I did want to note while you're thinking about this that it's not a given that new facilities would be proposed. So if you like the park just the way it is, you can also add that as a comment here. Or if you like something or you want to see something that wasn't on that list, please share that too.
Still seeing some typing. And for those commenting in the chat, we're definitely going to make sure we make a note and combine those comments with what is being mentioned on the Slido. All right, I think comments slowed down, got quite a few, so I definitely appreciate everyone for their input. I'll just do a quick scroll through so we know what was shared. Let's see, we got a new response. Lots on raised boardwalks. All right, well, definitely, like I said, thank you for your input here. Now we're going to transition into our last topic, which is the draft purpose and vision.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about some of those specific features or elements that could be included in the general plan. And we'd like to now kind of take a step back and look at the big picture and think about how all those ideas really relate to the overall purpose of the park and the long-term vision for the park. So next slide, please. So in a state park general plan, the unit purpose is, a brief statement, typically not more than just a few sentences, but it's a very important part of the plan because it describes why the area is a state park. It really serves as that basis for the overall direction of the general plan, and it guides all the future management of the park. The unit purpose is a required element of a general plan that's required by state law. And it's really intended to describe, what makes this park special? Why is it significant to the citizens of California? Why did it become a state park? It summarizes those key natural and cultural resources that are really unique to the park or make the park special. And it provides this kind of big picture, high level overall guidance for future park management. So I believe we have a Slido question to get your initial thoughts on the purpose.
We will read the purpose in the next one and then ask for some feedback. But we do want to get an idea of what core values should guide the planning and management of Great Valley Grasslands, and then we'll review the purpose and see how they align. Looks like ecosystem restoration, inclusivity were mentioned a few times. Still seeing some typing as well. Looks like the comments have slowed down. Now we will review the draft purpose, and then we'll ask for some reactions.
Yeah, and so as Luis mentioned, we have prepared this draft declaration of purpose as shown on the screen here. And we want to get your feedback on whether this addresses those core values that you just identified, and whether there are things that are missing that should be added into this statement of purpose, or whether there are things that are in this draft purpose statement that should be changed or revised. And I'll just read through it for anybody that might be participating on their phone or having a hard time seeing all the text. And so the draft declaration of purpose is: the purpose of Great Valley Grasslands State Park is to preserve and restore an important Central Valley ecosystem while providing high-quality outdoor recreation, interpretation, education, and respite for all visitors. Within the park, the San Joaquin River, its tributaries and surrounding wetlands, riparian areas, grasslands, and woodlands provide vital habitat for aquatic and terrestrial species who inhabit the valley and use the area as a migration stopover and breeding ground. The park, along with the surrounding preserved lands, creates a network of internationally important lands for wetland and grassland conservation while balancing public access for recreational use. We can go to the next slide, please.
And then our question is, share your thoughts on the draft purpose. Does it align with your core values for the park? And let me give everyone a couple seconds, 10 to 15 seconds or so to keep an eye on the draft declaration of purpose while you formulate those thoughts. Again, the question is, does it align with your core values? And feel free to elaborate. We definitely welcome thoughts, constructive criticism, just any input. You know, if you put mostly, and not to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to elaborate on that, you're more than welcome to. There's no pressure, but definitely you are welcome to. So we'll see one person typing. Appreciate the input. Oops. All right, well, I don't see any more typing, so thanks everyone for sharing. And we're gonna go on to the next unit vision.
All right, and the unit vision is really similar to the declaration of purpose in that it provides that high level overview, but it does provide a little more detail on the desired future conditions of the park. So it's another one of those required elements of the general plan that provides that overall guidance. but it describes how the park would look and function once all the general plan goals are met. So it describes the future or the desired character of the park, describes the various uses of the park, the future conditions of natural and cultural resources, and how the park will ultimately function and look after implementation of the general plan. So this includes things like visitor opportunities and activities, as well as the resource conditions. And I like to think of the unit vision as, we're 20 years in the future after the general plan's been adopted, and we're describing how the park is now, how it looks and how it functions. So with the next question, we'd like to hear a little bit from you about your vision for the park.
I know it's a little bit longer of a question, so we'll give people some extra time. All right, yeah, we got some good stuff, I think. Again, thank you everyone for participating. This was definitely one of our longer questions, so thanks for your patience. Great. I don't see any more activity, and I believe this was our last question. So before we move forward with next steps, I do want to open it up for questions one more time in case anyone has thoughts, questions, reactions while we have the Ascent and the State Parks team here. If you do have a question, feel free to go off mute. I'm not hearing any. Comments or just and thoughts are also welcome. It doesn't have to be questions. Any reactions are also welcome. Great. Well, I'm not hearing any, but I will hand it off to Danielle, who will explain how to stay engaged. If questions do come up, where to reach out or who to contact. So Danielle, I'll kick it back off to you. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate everyone's feedback tonight. I know I saw a lot of really engaging responses to our questions, and makes me excited to kind of see what's next and see where we can build this plan for you. I mean, that's the whole point of us engaging with you, is to hear what you have to say. And, you know, people have different opinions, and that's fantastic. That's really what we were hoping for tonight, is to hear these different points of view. So a few things you can do to help us out and to stay engaged with the project. First off, if you're not familiar with our website already, please take a look at that, or you can scan the QR code below. You can always send questions to our email address set up for the project, Great Valley Grasslands, general plan, or gp@parks.ca.gov. And the survey is really important. So if you haven't taken the survey yet, we'd ask that you take the survey. Let us know what you think, what you'd like to see. And then share it. You know, if you have social media, please share it there. If you are in the park frequently and talking to people, I know we had some people that were on today that frequent the park. So please help us share the word. There's a banner that was placed out the last few weeks. So, you know, share the information with people, because the more feedback we get, the better the plan will be. We're really here to listen to what you have to say. Next slide. So it was mentioned earlier that we are on our public meeting number 1 today. We have had our stakeholder meeting number 1. So in terms of next steps, we will be having another stakeholder meeting coming up in the future. There's no date for that yet. We'll be gathering some more information first, putting together some alternatives, and being able to present some of those. So look for more information coming out. We have a long ways to go before the plan's finished, so this is definitely the time to get your friends and family involved in the project and share all the information with them so we can get some more feedback. And I believe that is the end of our presentation tonight. So I just want to say thank you from California State Parks and from the Ascent team as well for giving up your evening with us and just being able to spend that time giving us some really good feedback. So appreciate that. And with that, please take the survey, spread the word, and we will be in touch soon.